button, a bell, something. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Are we good?
We are good. Problem fixed.
Is it a matter of a new link needs to be sent now? Or?
No.
Okay.
No. We had, that's the thing.
Try
also,
it
for
now.
our YouTube subscribers, again, we've been trying to limit the lead time because once you log on to our app on YouTube, there has been in previous weeks as much as 2 hours lead time before the show actually starts. We've been working on ways to limit or reduce that lead time to hopefully the goal is to either right now within a half an hour or really ideally a maximum of 15 minutes. And of course, as the program grows, we'll be able to show you more in that 15 minutes before the showtime than just a static image. But, one thing at a time. Baby steps.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
We will get there. We're
We
only
will
1
get
month.
there, but
We're
we're
only
working
1
on it
month
every
old.
day. We're working on improving the service that we deliver to you, the listening audience, not only in terms of the content, but certainly, of course, the visual and listening appeal as well every single day. So we will get there.
Absolutely.
So Justin Hastings got qualified for the Masters, and that, of course, is continuing hot on the heels of his teammate, Aaron Jarvis, who had a victory at the LAAC tournament and also had an impressive year in 2022. An interesting quote from the director of the Latin American and Caribbean, I guess, regional director of golf. He says, to produce two showings that something special, to produce two shows that something special is happening in one of the smallest countries in the region, says Mark Lowry. Mark Lowry, where's that from? Bad boy. Mike Lowry. This is Mark Lowry, his younger brother. The RNA director for Latin America and the Caribbean, one of the main organizers of the LAAC tournament. You have 27 holes and 2 players that have now qualified for the Masters. That shows the great work has been happening in the Cayman area. So, 2 young boys from a little bit of old Cayman Islands are turning heads not only in the region, but certainly, again,
around the world.
Around the world. Quite right. So I think this is tremendous news. And certainly congratulations to both Justin and Aaron on their phenomenal accomplishments. And again, I had the opportunity to meet Aaron Jarvis, having known, obviously, his parents for, a very long time.
You've ever played in the golf, Austin?
I have played golf. Not necessarily too well, but I have played golf. As I get older,
He smiles when he says
I do say it. As I get older, I tend to gravitate towards, I started out in team sports, which, and team contact sports as well. But as you get older, you start to lose the contact because, bones aren't as strong as they once were, and neither is anything else. But I also tend to gravitate towards more solitary sports. So I like fishing for the solitary nature of it. Really, it's just you and
You're a fisherman?
the man on the sea. I used to be.
Well, there's an article about that in fishing thing.
Yeah.
You might need a license. Austin.
No.
Oh, no, you're not on a permit.
I'm not on a
Just
permit, not
checking.
a foreigner. I'm from you. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
right from
fish.
you.
I
You
can
man
fish
don't come
on
with
the
no
surface.
license to me, Bobo.
Don't come with none of that foolishness, Bo. No, thank you very much. Golf and fishing are 2 sports that I certainly have tried. Fishing tend to stick more than golf, but I do like golf.
I can hear the
But
fish. I can hear the fish when you say it's a
greatest.
sport. Thinking.
Fishing is a sport.
He says the fish is thinking, speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself. That's right.
You
That's what it's
tricked me.
They call fishing, not catching. So again, that's the sporting aspect of it. But anyway, congratulations to all of our athletes.
Absolutely.
And again, certainly to their listening audience, all of their parents as well. They're proud parents, showing again that you've raised some really great kids.
did
that are doing
something
some
right.
great things. And of course, I think this follows neatly on the heels of our good news yesterday, where again we spoke of the new Kojima, Japanese speak from diaphragm. I was thinking about that today as well too. Your timing is just perfect, man. Kojima, the newest.
I caught it right on time, right? There you go.
You nailed it, buddy.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Yeah, the newest restaurant there in Georgetown, just less than a block away from Rackham's on the same side of the road. Really fantastic food, good sushi, good steak, and all at a reasonable price. But you walk in there and you feel like $1 million. Kojima. Yeah. And they got, for anybody who, and again, we like movies. There was a series on Apple TV. It was a remake called Shogun. Maybe you remember that.
I do remember
growing up.
Shogun.
Yeah, it was around when we were younger. I remember watching the original with my parents. That's why when I guess Apple decided to remake it, I watched it, and it was terrific. I mean, terrific movie. If you haven't seen it, go out and check it out. And then tell me, once you see the logo in the movie or in the series, check it out against Kojima logo at the restaurant, and tell me you don't find, rather startling, if not stark, reality, a similarity.
Really?
Yeah. So, and again, it matches everything. The food was good. The series was good. So, and the recommendation is sound. So you definitely want to check it out. The weekend is a good time to check it out as well. Again, run by a Caymanian couple.
Anytime between 11:30 and 10 o'clock. 11:30 in the day until 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right.
Yeah, that's my good news. But we got 6 more minutes left to banter.
So all I can say is, Austin, the fact that it is happy hour
Yes.
might mean we mightn't get too many calls. And if we do get a call, it might be one of those guys. I'm telling you guys. I'm listening to you every day. Listen, I'm not going to call any names.
I don't know
there's a particular person.
There's one in
There's
particular.
particular person, and you know who it is, right? That doesn't call me until he's drunk. And boy, do I get it. Ellio,
You should be honored. He thinks of you when at his most subconscious moment. You're the first thought that
he's probably saying, I have to get the liquid courage to talk
jumps
to this
into
man.
his head.
Listen to me, Ellio, I can tell you, it's always like a superstar type of talk,
Oh yeah, always.
I hope he's listening.
Always very high level, almost out of an encyclopedia.
Which is probably not listening because it is Friday and happy
Yeah,
hour.
Come on, what are you talking about? It's happy hour prices now.
I wasn't listening, Ellio. He'll catch it on Saturday morning, about 11 when he wakes up.
Well, good thing you're on YouTube. You can replay it, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Like, I loved your show on Friday, man. I caught it on Saturday morning with my coffee.
If
and
I had only caught it, Ellio, I would have
aspirin.
called.
Well, we did get a picture thanks to our roving reporter, the eye in the sky. I'm going to start to name this person on WhatsApp, our eye in the sky roving traffic reporter. We're going to have to find a sound effect that has a helicopter's sound. But he reports, and yes, I've told you it's a male. He reports that it's just another day in paradise with only a half a smile on his face on the Linford-Pearson Highway. Right now, the Linford-Pearson Highway is bumper to bumper, but there is a little bit of air between the car in front of you and the car behind you. It's not,
Not completely bumper to
not
bumper.
completely bumper to bumper. So there's, at least some breeze going on there. Today, speaking of breeze, oh my God, today was a hot day. Summer is definitely on its way, but I digress. So if you're traveling along the Linford-Pearson Highway, it is Friday, and yes, there is traffic jams. Again, I did say it's less than during the rest of the days of the week, but it doesn't mean there is none. So if you're heading home or heading to your favorite watering hole, or like most adults, who does watering hole? We're heading to Foster's, then we're heading home to cook dinner. What are you talking about? Then yes.
Well,
you have some
I'm
traffic
surprised to
jams.
hear that there's a lot of traffic on Linford-Pearson Highway because normally on Fridays, it's
Yeah.
well spaced.
It is. That's what I said. And again, I think the addition of that third lane finally, once it finally got finished,
Even better.
really has made an impact, particularly in the mornings. Again, it's not perfect, but it is an improvement on what it once was.
I was thinking, before they did the third lane, I was literally thinking of sneaking out there and planting a tree in the middle of the median. I'm just being honest.
I think
it's not a crime if I thought about it,
I
right?
think we have one of those already, and I think she goes by a name. Sometimes she's out there, with a sign and some ridiculous otherwise commentary.
I'm serious. I wanted to do that. I said, let's go plant some trees
Feel
down the
sorry for her.
median.
She needs medical attention.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
Oh, you do know.
I'm
but
not in that.
I'm not going to go there on the radio.
I'm not in that
Everybody
category.
knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Everybody knows.
Okay.
So you were saying,
No, I was saying I actually thought about sneaking out there.
and planting a tree in the middle of the road?
No, well, yeah, in the middle of the median,
Oh, in the middle
which
of the
happens
median.
which
Okay.
happens to be in the middle of the road.
That is different. I was going to call
no,
you.
no. In the
chaos
middle of
agent.
the median.
That's not a bad idea. It would be nice to see some,
Yeah, I want to see more
some
trees.
shrubbery and trees and whatnot there.
And I figured, I could take the approach of contacting NRA, but then that could be like death by committee. You know what committees are. They take really good minutes and then they lose hours, Austin. So I said, no, just go plant it, Ellio, and worst case, ask for forgiveness afterwards. So I still might be doing that, just letting people know.
Yeah, great,
you see trees growing up on the median, I could have something to do with it.
You might have.
I'm thinking nice birch, even some fruit trees. You know, while you're stuck in traffic, you could catch a mango or something.
Yes, yes. I did get, just so we can talk about it while we're on the air without saying what I got. I did get that email that we were looking for from this morning.
Oh, you did?
It just showed up at 4:38. So
great.
I'm going to try. To get it in within the 7 minutes during the break, but probably more than likely it'll be Monday.
Yeah.
But that's all right. We're grateful for all of that business.
So for those who are not on happy hour, whenever we get back from this break, I want to have a discussion. We're going to talk about some stuff to do with government. I'm thinking executive powers, etc. Picking up from yesterday's conversation.
Yes, and we also had the first of the many planned chamber candidate forums last night in East End.
That's right. Want to talk about that?
There's a couple of highlights that we're going to share with that. And certainly, this is where the listener participation comes from. If you're heading home, and hopefully some of you in traffic are heading to East End, so therefore you live in East End, maybe you had a chance to check it out. Chime in.
Send us a text, worst case.
2626 is the number. Or, of course, you can send us a WhatsApp voice note or a WhatsApp traditional text message simply by writing in or talking into 928-2562. But we do have to pause and take a short commercial break, check in with the BBC News at the top of the hour. But there'll be more Straight Talk still to come. Of course, it is Friday. And again, as we stated, it is Open Mic Friday. No guests on the agenda, just a conversation with you, the listening audience. So give us a call, 745-2626. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on 103.1 FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. Bobo FM. We're making Bobo FM bigger and better. We've got a brand new frequency with even more power. Retune your FM radio to 103.1 now. This is Bobo FM, the home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. Now in our new home of 103.1 FM. This is Bobo 103.1.
For business, they say location, location, location. But really, there's no better location than right here, right now on your mobile phone or laptop. Buy and sell your pre-owned gear where the island is searching online. Buy and sell on ektrade.com. That's ektrade.com.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. Powered by Health Services Authority, the home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. President Trump says securing Russia's backing for a ceasefire in Ukraine is proving hard, but he's still confident he'll get it. He said he'd made further calls to Moscow and Kiev and had good news. Pressure on President Putin to accept the deal being offered by Washington was maintained by foreign ministers from the G7 countries. They've threatened further sanctions and endorsed what they called credible security guarantees to protect Ukraine from future aggression. Our State Department correspondent Tom Bateman says the G7 text is very different from a year ago under the Biden administration.
Gone was all the wording of last autumn's G7 foreign minister's statement, which described Russia's illegal, unjustifiable and unprovoked full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, the text called on Moscow to agree to the US proposed ceasefire on what it called equal terms and to implement it fully. While the text papered over a clear fracture in the Western alliance now over dealing with Moscow, it did affirm what it called the G7's unwavering support for Ukraine in defending its territorial integrity, sovereignty and right to exist. A clear win for the European nations, as the US appeared to have managed to strip out any explicit condemnation of Russia for starting the war.
In Kiev, President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Mr. Putin of seeking to derail diplomacy and prolong the war. He denied the Kremlin's claim that Ukrainian troops inside Russia were surrounded. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has dismissed suggestions by the Trump administration that the United States could annex his country as crazy. Speaking after being sworn in, Mr. Carney said his priorities would be to protect the interests of Canadian workers and diversify trade relations. On the escalating tariff war with the US, he said that President Trump was a businessman and should remember that Canada was America's biggest client and, as such, expected respect. President Trump has said US news organization that criticize him should be illegal. In a long and rambling speech at the Department of Justice, Mr. Trump said that CNN, MSNBC and some newspapers wrote 97% bad things about him, and that this had to stop.
These networks and these newspapers are really no different than a highly paid political operative. It's influencing judges, and it's really changing law, and it just cannot be legal. I don't believe it's legal, and they do it in total coordination with each other.
The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, says the United States is expelling the South African ambassador, accusing him of anti-Americanism and of hating President Trump. In a post on X, Mr. Rubio said the ambassador was no longer welcome in the United States. Last month, Mr. Rubio refused to attend a G20 meeting in Johannesburg. This is the world news from the BBC. The UN Security Council has condemned the mass killing of civilians in parts of Syria last week. It urged the Syrian transitional authorities to respect all people, regardless of religion and ethnicity. A war monitoring group says over 1,000 civilians were killed in the coastal province of Latakia and surrounding areas by security forces and allied groups. Ferez Kilani reports.
Entire families were killed in the attacks that targeted predominantly Alawite areas. Hundreds of people are sheltering at a Russian air base on the outskirts of Latakia, terrified and in fear of their lives. This conflict presents a huge challenge for Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Shara, who is just 3 months into his presidential term. He has promised to hold those responsible to account. But the scars from this violence will not be easily forgotten.
2 alleged Mexican cartel leaders have pleaded not guilty to drug trafficking, racketeering and money laundering charges before a federal judge in Washington, D.C. Brothers Miguel Angel and Omar Trevino Morales were among 29 Mexicans extradited to the US on a single day last week. US prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. The presidents of Venezuela and Russia have announced they're planning to sign a comprehensive agreement that includes further cooperation on energy, transport and agriculture. It comes 2 weeks after the United States suspended a license that allowed the US oil company Chevron to operate in Venezuela. A new study suggests that monkeys infected with the deadly Ebola virus can be cured with a new pill, raising hopes for more practical and affordable treatments in humans. Scientists in Texas infected 13 rhesus macaques with an extremely high dose of a variant of Ebola. 8 out of 10 monkeys who were given the short course of a pill developed protective antibodies. BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Happy Friday and welcome back. Hey man, I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and we are super excited. If you want to join the conversation or carry us in some totally different direction, call 745-2626. That's 745-2626.
Or, of course, if using up your valuable credit isn't your idea of a fun time, well, you can certainly dial our WhatsApp number at 928-2562. And from there, you can send us either a voice note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. We are broadcasting live on your radio dial on Bobo 103.1 FM and also simulcasting live on YouTube at Straight Talk Show and on Instagram at The Rec Room 345. Check us out on whatever medium you're most comfortable with using. Moving into our Open Mic Friday, as we talked about, we got a number of, I guess, items that we'd like to bring. Ellio, let me offer you the floor to start us off.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man. It's all you.
All right. Well, I don't know where I'm going to start. I have so many things I want to talk about.
Well, pick one.
Well, first of all, just to give people an update, this is the Compass, 14th to the 20th of March, 2025. On the front page, angling for a license.
14th of the 20th of March?
Yeah, that's what it says.
The 14th of the 20th of March?
It says 14-20, March 2025. So I'm guessing you're printing the paper. It's one paper for that region, a period of time.
Okay.
Hey, don't complicate me.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to be clarifying. It's like, wow, we got a newspaper in the future. Wow, the 20th.
Yeah, it's all
a whole week away.
Yeah.
Talk about you get the news first.
So you might have been listening and learned that my colleague, Austin Harris, considers fishing a sport. I mean, quite frankly, unless you're telling me you're pulling up marlins, Austin.
You never know once you get your line wet.
I'm not sure it qualifies in my books as quite enough sweat being built up, you know.
I disagree. I want to take you fishing just for one day.
I'm skinning this cat, Austin.
Just one day. You're going to change your tune automatically.
I'm just going to tell you.
Lord, this is a sport. It should be an Olympic sport.
I have fished before. It's not my thing, but I have fished. Okay?
Sure you can, man.
I'm going to share my experiences with you. And first of all, I want to let you know, and all the persons who are listening, throwing a line overboard while sitting on a dock and just sitting there, okay? I'm sorry to break it to you. That is not a sport.
Sure it is.
No.
Sure it is.
No,
it is.
In my
golfers have their swing, fishermen have
and golf barely qualifies as well, okay? When you walk, it's probably a sport. When you swing, it's probably a sport.
Sacrilege.
That cart thing doesn't cut it.
Sacrilege.
Okay, so all I'm telling you is get a little bit more physical activity. But either way, we're keeping sports very broad, you know, like male and female sports kind of thing.
You probably think wrestling is real too, don't you?
No, I don't think wrestling is real. But I'll tell you what, it has much more activity than shore fishing. So anyway, the Compass here is talking about potential of getting permit holders to get a license to fish.
Yes.
And I'm going to get Austin's view on this as well because he's a fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just say it doesn't specify, but we can bear in mind that what are some of the problems? What are some of the challenges? People are suggesting that, you know, these foreigners are coming here on permits and eating up all the fish.
So they say, yes.
I'm just telling you, this is the complaints. You know, they're eating up all the fish. They're consuming it. There's no more fish left for locals. And
well, I think I read somewhere, and I don't know whether it's DOE supported or otherwise, but they are suggesting that there is or has been an evidence-based decline in local fish stocks. Again, I don't go out there and count the individual fish. And again, from the shore, what are we talking about here? A few snappers, a few grunts, you know, maybe a goggle eye, as we used to call it, you know.
Yeah.
But that has been a claim made that fishing stocks have been going down.
Right. And again, that would not surprise me. That would not surprise me. But just saying, those are some of the complaints. And I think, first of all, what's important to note is it doesn't necessarily state that this license has to be, if it's implemented, has to have a specific fee. Right? I'm a firm believer in tracking information. So from that perspective alone, I agree with a license. So in other words, it should be very clear to a person who's going to go and fish, especially if they're not locals. You should be able to know where you have to fish. You should be able to know that what you're allowed to take out of the water and what you're not allowed to take out of the water.
Yeah.
And it should be that you either have a license that you're doing it for personal consumption or if you're selling it.
For profit.
Now, this is one of the problems that I have seen myself, all right? Some permit holders fishing, taking the fish out and selling it. Now, you see, I kind of have a challenge with that.
Okay.
I have a real problem with that. A guy trying to catch a fish should probably get something to eat and kind of let that slide. I mean, come on. You know, a hungry man's an angry man. Now, again, we can always say, why is someone in the country and can't even afford to get something to eat? That's a different issue.
That's an altogether different argument, but a valid one nonetheless.
It's a valid one, but slightly different for today.
Yes.
So from that perspective, I think that you should have a license if it's nothing else other than to track the information and to make sure that the proper information is being disseminated to them.
Right.
So no one can claim ignorance of the law. Like you can't pull out a little six-incher.
Yes, quite right.
Focus.
Yes.
You can't
focus, Ellio.
You can't pull out a little...
You need Jesus in the worst of ways. You really do.
Okay.
I take it to church with me on Sunday.
Austin, you know, it's
your mother would be so...
It's when I look at your face, Austin.
Is that what it is? Am I a clown? Do I make you laugh? As
Lord help me.
Movies would say. Please continue.
All right.
So you don't pull out juvenile
I'm serious.
Fish.
You don't pull out...
Juvenile fish. How's that sound? Fish that have not reached the age of maturity.
Have not reached the adequate length.
Correct.
Is what...
Oh, please forgive us for having a moment.
Focus. No,
what
anyway,
is in your water today?
Listen to me. I have my water. Okay, hold on.
Consuming.
Well, I do have some Himalayan mineral salt in there. Okay.
Really?
So bottom line is, you can't just pull anything out of. Okay, here's what I'm gonna word it. You can't just pull anything out of the water. Okay, it has to be a certain size. If it's not, catch and release. Put it back. But I have seen people fishing, and then they have these smallest little things swimming around in a 5-gallon bucket, Austin. I've seen this, right? You know, you talk about crime against humanity, right?
Aquarium fish. What are you going to do with that, sir?
Yeah, and you say to them, and I've said to them, what are you going to do with that? Come on, put that thing back. You know what? At most, you could say you use that one as bait to catch a real fish, right?
Right.
So anyway, there has to be certain rules in relation to this fishing thing.
Yes.
And those are some of the things, and definitely shouldn't be a case that you're here on permit unless you have a license. That then this one you should definitely be paying for is to say I'm a commercial fisherman, right? So I think that
that is the fact, of course, you know, if you're on a work permit, you're on a work permit for something specific.
For something specific.
You shouldn't be fishing to sell fish without a permit.
Well, unless somehow magically they have another second employer, I have no idea. But either way, you can see where someone selling fish is in a completely different category than a person who is trying to feed themselves.
Yes.
And again, for the minimums of tracking information, I think it has a lot of relevance.
Yeah.
I don't know how many persons are fishing, but even myself, I don't really go fishing, but I don't necessarily say that I have all the knowledge of where I can fish and where I can't fish. And if I did start fishing as a sport, Austin, of course.
It is, yeah.
As a sport.
As a sport.
I think the
uniforms and everything.
I think you should say it more like sport. You know, kind of, because it's not quite a sport. It's a sport. So either way, if I did, I would need
ear later on.
I would need directions.
Somebody got like.
I would need directions on where I could fish and can't fish. Okay. So in other words, I would need directions on where I can throw my line, where I can't throw it. Any feedback from you, Mr. Fisherman? What are your thoughts? Because you are a fisherman into that sport.
No, into that sport. Yes, right. Well, you know, honestly, I'm of two minds with it, but I certainly would agree with you.
A man of two minds is of no mind at all. So please choose one.
Certainly, on the issue of you know, foreigners fishing as a business without a permit, certainly no, that's wrong. We should definitely put a license on there. I would
as in one that you pay for, yeah.
One that you pay for, absolutely. Yeah. You know, and obviously, you know, it's income coming into you that is not on your reason for being here. And again, we talk about, you know, enforcing the law, the letter of the law all the time.
Oh, I love the idea. Enforcement.
If we want to, you know, introduce a carve out, I don't have a problem with that. I certainly wouldn't debate against it. Again, to your point, fishing to feed themselves, that's a different story, whether you're Caymanian or a foreigner. I don't know if I can say, that we're somehow displacing Caymanians by allowing a foreigner to fish off the shore. I mean, I don't know that there are, you know, droves of Caymanians.
And you said that, who was making that argument? DOE or something?
Oh no, DOE made the argument, I believe, and again, I'm quoting I'm quoting from memory. I thought I read somewhere, whether in that article or somewhere else at a previous time, that even the DOE might have suggested that fishing stocks may have been reducing. But certainly, when we ask the question, well, why license foreigners and not Caymanians? Again, you're presuming the reason you're licensing them is because somehow they're taking away fishing stock that would otherwise go to a Caymanian either for profit or for food. I don't know that for a fact. I think we're nitpicking on this issue, to be completely honest with you. It's a natural resource. It's there. Again, if I can see evidence where somehow Caymanians are being displaced from this opportunity, then I would say, what are we talking about this? We got much, excuse the language, but bigger fish to fry.
Pardon the pun.
Pardon the pun. Bigger fish to fry than this particular issue. As a citizen, listen, you would understand this. I'd love to add more fish to my diet, but fish is expensive. And I can't complain too much about the expense of the fish either, because the likelihood that supermarkets are buying from local fishermen at a premium price means, money in the pocket of that Caymanian fisherman. Gas ain't cheap. Most of the people who are supplying to the supermarkets are not fishing from the shore. They're fishing from a vessel, whether it be, a 12-foot dinghy or a 33-foot, personal craft, or maybe even a larger commercial fishing vessel, albeit the larger commercial fishing vessels that come into Cayman, to my knowledge, are largely foreign in nationality in terms of foreign boats that are run. And I know this because my previous constituency of Prospect and the canals were littered with them. So, again, I'm not saying what I heard, I'm saying what I know. But, and certainly the commercial fishing aspects, particularly with commercial boats in Prospect, one of the issues that I faced certainly during my term in office were those commercial boats sitting in canals, which are residential canals, and the boats discharging their affluent into that canal. That's an environmental hazard. I have problems with that. There should be enforcement there. There should be licensing there. There should be arrests there if necessary.
I like that Freudian slip, by the way.
Yes.
Discharging your affluence. Get them off the boat, Chuck.
Get them off the boat. What the play?
You were correct, Austin.
I would have an issue with that, and I think that is where we should be focusing our energies. Again, depriving an individual, foreign or local, from fishing off the shore. Fishing is very enjoyable. It is very relaxing. You have the benefit of being outdoors. You have the added benefit of that salt air in your nostrils. And if you're alone, it's a wonderful time to, reconnect with yourself, or not think of anything at all and just enjoy the view. And if you happen to catch a fish, then bonus. But otherwise, I ask myself, is this really an issue that we should be wasting our time with? Forgive me for being so blunt.
Yeah, well, again, it's a situation that one would have to count the cost. What is it going to take to produce the license,
absolutely.
et cetera.
That aside, I mean, certainly if our stocks are depleting to the point whereas, we're potentially facing major issues, then okay.
But I remember while
depriving a Caymanian, because of their existence, I go, okay. But,
not sure I can see that you're depriving a Caymanian, although I could see that I don't have any space on the dock, maybe. Maybe you could argue that. But I do remember having similar discussions with Department of Environment. When we were in office, it was, you got to do this, that, because the fish are disappearing. And, and then you ask questions like, well, what happens to that fish? Well, they get mature and then they swim somewhere else. And
I do have issue with folks that scuba, for example, for lobster. I understand that is still a thing. Once upon a time, it was a big thing. But, the scuba rules tend to change that. But if you're going to go looking for lobster, you should do it on a single breath, free diving, because there are limitations. And I also have a major problem with folks who go out. I mean, we have limits on conch. Like, I like to, it's just something nostalgic, if not cultural, about, diving for conch. But the reason we have limits on conch is so that there's enough for everybody. I have a real problem with people who poach. Whether they're feeding themselves or probably selling is 9 times out of 10 the case. Those laws, I think are important and justifiable. But again, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's not a problem. And again, in my discussions, there would be the commentary again of there were certain treaties and stuff that were signed up to and kind of keeping your side of the bargain. And I've always said, you know, come on, unless these bigger players are going to keep their side of the bargain, really, it's definitely not fair. Let me just tell you, looking up really quickly, the United States, and it varies between 17, 20, 18, but on average, the United States consumes approximately 17.9 million pounds of seafood daily.
How many?
17.9 million.
Wow,
2021, the per capita consumption was 20.5 pounds, and leading to a higher daily average of about 18.6 million. But either way, 17, 18, who, you know,
these are Americans.
In America alone.
Compared to the Japanese.
Compared to Japanese. And all I'm simply saying is, you know, if you're going to tell me what potential anywhere between 1 and maybe 5,000 people in Cayman fishing, it's like a little squirt on the map.
It is.
You know,
right.
and
what are we talking about?
Yeah, so, you know, if you really want to fix the overfishing problem, you know, there's bigger fish to fry.
There is bigger fish.
17.9 million pounds daily.
Yeah.
Daily. Yeah, you think you're anywhere near that?
No.
So back to my point about licensing. If you go searching for Cayman to find out what we're consuming, you really can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't find out what we're consuming.
Yeah.
And I'm saying part of that is where I agree with things like licensing and kind of tracking more information.
Yeah, indeed.
Because it gives you those sort of things that government authorities, organizations can make more intelligent decisions.
Quite right. Well, it is 23 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. And what do you think, Cayman, on the whole licensing of fishing from the shore? Should there be two separate rules, one for us and one for everyone else? Or do you agree we have bigger fish to fry and we should be focusing on those issues? We have to pause, take a very short commercial break. But when we come back, the phone lines will be open on this topic. We'll be eager to hear from you right here, only on Straight Talk.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Mobile FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Mobile FM.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM, where the phone lines are open at 745-2626. Or, of course, you can share your comments with us via our WhatsApp number at 928-2562. There you can either send us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional traditional text message. And Ellio, we have one such voice note. I'm presuming it is on the topic of the moment on fishing from the shore, but let's have a listen.
Austin and Ellio, I'm enjoying the subject today. You're talking about fishing and the price of fish and what have you there on the island. Has anyone considered fish farming? We have a turtle farm. I see no reason why Cayman should not have a fish farm. You know, we are an island in the Caribbean, and we are known for our fishing, deep sea fishing and what have you. My grandfather was a turtler, John D. Nixon. He's my mother's father, which is my grandfather, and he was a turtler. And when he died, my uncle Edward continued the tradition. I see no reason why there shouldn't be a fish farm there on the island. Why not?
All right. Well, thank you very much for that feedback. And I think certainly to the caller's point, I think one had been proposed once upon a time, and it was proposed, I think, even a tilapia farm. And I think it fell off the proposal table almost as quickly as it got there because they had suggested tilapia, which is not necessarily a local or indigenous fish. And arguably, well, when compared to, say, I don't know, a grouper or a snapper, it doesn't taste that much better either. So I think perhaps that was where it may have failed, but it has been proposed before. again, from a standpoint of food security, I say sure, why not? Let's re-explore the notion because we want to obviously protect our ability to feed ourselves. But again, Mother Nature tends to provide that for us, unless, of course, there are scientific evidence suggesting that fish stock is in fact depleting in local waters and therefore may otherwise justify the need for fish farming. But what are your thoughts?
My thoughts would be, should I say I have two minds on the matter?
Well, yes, and I won't insult you with that has no mind at all. But no, you can have.
Actually, it's a pretty female statement to say.
No, I believe it. I remember it.
Yeah, you remember it?
I felt embarrassed after I said it.
Oh yeah, but don't take it. We're just having fun on here.
Oh, I know. I get over
let's not take life too serious.
Not at all.
None of us are getting out of here alive.
No.
Rumor has it.
None of us are getting out of this thing alive.
And apparently, kings, queens, and pawns will all be leaving in the same box. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So on the issue of farming, I mean, I would take generally two positions. So if I take farming general as most people would understand it, I would say absolutely we should be doing it. Nothing hurts that because to your point about food security, etc. I mean, it can't hurt, right?
Right.
And fish is supposed to be reasonably a healthy food to eat. But considering that I'm in the farming business, I can tell you that a lot of the things that we're giving to our animals, in my humble opinion, prevents a lot of things from being as healthy as it should be, Mm-hmm. Now, it's a discussion that you probably have to get into in more details in terms of when an animal is eating natural, what happens and the conversion that goes place and how we benefit from it, as opposed to us getting in and what we're buying from Monsanto and from this place and that place to go ahead and feed the animals at $6 a bag, Austin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can see it becomes economically advantageous for farmers to buy a big bag of stuff and it's for $6.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the animal gets fat overnight.
Yeah.
But I can assure you it's not necessarily healthy. So, yeah, on a general sense about farming, go for it. But because of what I've seen and happened in a lot of farming, you might want to just try to keep it as natural as possible as long as we can.
Yeah.
And with that, I would be on DOE's side or anyone's side that wants to keep the ocean as secure and as pure as possible and let the fish be plentiful and multiply.
No, absolutely. And certainly just on the last point of certainly, the cost of fish in our stores, whilst, again, if we presume that the fish, being sold is in fact fish that is bought from local waters, and then we presume further that is supporting a Caymanian family, then again, perhaps we might forgive the high cost of fish. However, again, everything in the supermarket is going up in price. Fish is obviously a healthier option. So if it is healthier, why are we paying so much more for it? Again, this is a matter for the market, I think, largely to correct. I certainly would hate to take food out of a local fisherman's mouth and he and his family, that feeds he and his family. But sometimes we have to think with the bigger picture in mind. You want to price yourself out of the market where less people are buying fish and therefore supermarkets are buying less volume, or to the contrary, you want to make fish affordable, therefore healthier, and therefore the supermarket buys from you every week, sometimes twice on Sundays.
On that issue, I think government should play a bigger role in terms of how we're going ahead and getting food in the country, because you're making a situation from an economic perspective that unhealthy food is cheaper, and all your good food is more expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't lead for the good health of a society. But either way, you see, we did get that text. I kind of forwarded it to you, I think.
You did forwarded it to me. I was just going to read it. We got two messages, again, from social media. One says, maybe no fees for shore fishing, but anyone fishing offshore should have to pay a licensing fee, ? Or how about lower fees for locals, ? Then they go on to say, as for the fish farming, I think farming coral to continuously plant to support sea life might be a good way to start. And I certainly would agree with that secondary recommendation.
I love that.
I support the work that is already being done to replant mangrove forests that we destroy in the first place in the name of laying down more concrete and steel and development, whilst appreciating, obviously, the environmental benefits that mangrove forests provide, not to mention, of course, buffering the shoreline from hurricane wave surge, but also serving as a nursery for those juvenile or smaller fish that my colleague was referring to earlier on, that is a much better environment than swimming around in your bucket. 745-2626.
And I want to thank the listener for sending in those comments. Again, it's showing that people are listening, trying to get engaged one way, shape, or another. So much appreciated.
No, we certainly do. 745-2626. If you've got any feedback or comments on this topic, we'd love to hear from you. If not, perhaps we should
move on to the next one.
Move on to the next one. Well, at 32 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Someone did send me something, if I got a minute to read it.
You got 2 minutes.
I think it says here, treaty between the government of the Republic of Honduras and the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland concerning the delimitation of the maritime areas between the Cayman Islands and the Republic of Honduras. The parties agree that the maritime boundary between the Cayman Islands and the Republic of Honduras shall be formed by geodesic lines joining in order in which they are given specified points identified by their geographical coordinates. Provisions concerning fishing by vessels of the Cayman Islands in the area of Misteriosa and Rosario Banks are set out in Annex B to this treaty, which forms an integral part thereof. Commercial fishing for red snapper and grouper by vessels of the Cayman Islands may continue in the area of Misteriosa and Rosario Banks, located in the exclusive economic zone of the Republic of Honduras, in accordance with existing patterns and levels. The government of the Republic of Honduras extends access free of charge to the said area for up to 10 vessels of the Cayman Islands, duly notified in advance by the competent authorities of the Cayman Islands for the purpose of conducting such fishing. Specified conditions shall apply. The government of the Republic of Honduras shall have exclusive authority to enforce the provisions of this annex and applicable national fishery regulations with respect to fishing vessels of the Cayman Islands within the said area. Well, I think that's a short read, but interesting to know that the Cayman Islands is allowed to fish within that area.
Well, certainly it is. Misterioso is another bank, but it's out there, and it's certainly very popular among sport fishermen. Again, with sport, the big sport with a big S, versus commercial fishing, and that's what I was curious about. Does that agreement address deal with commercial fishing? Or
yes,
fishing?
I think this would be addressing commercial fishing. You're talking about 10 vessels. This sounds like you're pulling up large amounts of fish.
Fleet, yes, absolutely. Now that in that case, I certainly again would agree with that, because it is a natural resource for both countries, and again for the same reason as we don't allow overfishing for kunks, we want to make sure there's enough there for everybody to get a fair amount, so there aren't any fishing wars. But we also don't deplete the otherwise fish stock that is available for everyone. Certainly sport fishermen, those who do it either for pleasure or for the glory of winning fishing tournaments and having that fantastic trophy that is worth more than the Oscars for bragging rights. The fish was humongous. Let me tell you about that 3.5 hour fight that really took everything out of me. But
that's a real sport. Huh?
That's a real sport.
That's a real sport.
That's a man sport.
Now, when we come back...
It's not a man sport anymore. I'm sorry to say that. Women are involved in it as well. I think of my good friend Jennifer, if you're listening. She listens to our podcast as well. She's one of these, again, I gave her a name. She's from Canada. Mm-hmm. When she first came to Cayman, she said, like most people, trying to reinvent themselves. They're searching for themselves, trying to, re-energize. So she came to Cayman intent on immersing herself in Caymanian culture, which she did. She wanted to learn how to fish, so she immersed herself in Caymanian fishing culture, which she did. Along the way, she fell in love with a Caymanian fisherman, and now she fishes all of the time. So I'm most impressed with that. And she is not alone, because there is a growing number of female anglers, is I think the politically correct term, out there, and they're doing some wonderful things. So bravo.
I have two things to say on that.
Just two?
First of all, you mentioned about real man, and then you kind of pulled back a little bit. So what I'm saying, first of all, I think when many of us say, it's a real man, it also can encapsulate later, right? Can encapsulate a woman, because we're just really meaning to say, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you got cojones. It's a real man. You did it. And, of course, my second thought would be, in a world of where we're pushing for equality, I mean, probably being called a real man might be a compliment, right?
Maybe.
Right? So I want to say that when we come back from the break, want to have a discussion. We want to talk about executive powers, et cetera, a little part of the educational process in relation to the government. And I do want to touch briefly on this international news about Duterte in the Philippines being...
I'm so glad you pronounced that name. I'd struggle with it.
Duterte being arrested by ICC.
Well, we do have one final comment, and I think we'll use this to sort of close out the whole fishing discussion. Again, unless the listener chooses to drag us back in. It says, there shouldn't be any licenses needed for Caymanians to fish. If you're a tourist and want to fish, you must get a license for however many days. It doesn't have to be a permanent license. But for permit holders, they should not be able to fish at all, period. So obviously taking a much stronger line in the sand approach to the whole proposals. Hey, we thank you for your comments and your feedback on the issues, obviously, on the discussion table. 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We're going to pause, take another short commercial break. But when we come back, news from the region, locally, and, of course, globally. I think we're going to talk about an arrest that was made and could be a rather historic one if it moves forward. But we'll talk about that and much more when Straight Talk returns right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Bobo FM.
And welcome back, hey man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube and Instagram. Open mic Friday is the order of the day. The phone lines are open at 745-2626. And my colleague, Ellio, we shall move on to topic number 2.
I don't know. Which one you want to go? Let's leave, it's now 5:39.
Yes, well, do you want to touch on the East End debates, or do you want to touch on the...
Oh, yeah, let's do your East End debates.
Let's do that. The first in a series of candidate debates, as we've been talking about, took place last night and hosted by the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce in the constituency or wider district of East End, with all 5 candidates agreeing and showing up.
Love that.
There were 3 independents, namely the incumbent Isaac Rankin. I don't know why I have a hard time saying those names. Independent Roydell Carter and independent John B. McLean Jr. There was 1 candidate from the Cayman Islands National Party in the person of Jiva Richards and 1 PPM member, Delmira Bodden. Unfortunately, and again, we understand this particular challenge better than most. The chamber was wrought with technical problems on this, the first showing.
I noticed that.
Yeah, they had some issues, almost to the point where as I started watching and I thought it was a connection on my end. So I kept restarting, and after a while I got fed up. But they had to deal with audio problems that forced at least 2 replays. But once they got that out of the way, the candidates faced at least 10 questions posed by the Chamber's Will Pinot, Shamari Scott, and Omari Corbin, with topics ranging from education, the landfill, traffic to immigration, cruise tourism, and the erosion of 7 Mile Beach. Each candidate was given 2 minutes to answer each question and an additional 2.5 minutes each. What are you laughing about?
I'm like, why did you blaze your eyes at me just because you just mentioned cruise tourism?
Well, everybody knows this is your topic. This is the Ellio subject matter.
Well, I say one of many.
One of many, but it could be your favorite, possibly.
Oh,
yes, maybe?
At least until 30 April 2025.
There you go. And after that, then no more again. You've done your part for cruise
We shall
tourism.
see. We shall see.
Now, all 5 were asked what their top 3 priorities would be if they are elected. No surprise there. All 5 cited immigration reform and unemployment of Caymanians as their top priorities. A few notable mentions in this category. Roydell Carter, the independent candidate, referred to unemployment and immigration as the forgotten Caymanian people, suggesting that, again, we have laws, but we smooth over Caymanian interests almost quite regularly. While John McLean Jr., also an independent, asserted that we shouldn't have any unemployment, specifically amongst Caymanians, when you've got 50,000 people on work permits. And again, you can't argue with that logic, but certainly that was the point that he asserted. Traffic, not surprising also, was a major area of concern for all candidates, with some very interesting recommendations coming from each of the candidates during the debates. Jiva Richards of the Cayman Islands National Party, she recommended more government-owned buses and proper bus stops instead of vehicles pulling over on the side of the road to pick up people wherever and whenever they do, and also to look at school buses for private schools as well as public schools. I certainly support the latter of school buses for private schools. It was amongst the 1 of 10 recommendations put forward by the Traffic Committee, which I had the privilege of chairing back in 2020. Roydell Carter suggested bus drivers who leave passengers stranded by not completing their routes should be fined. And I think that is certainly room for that, although I'd be very curious to know how often this happens. And if it does happen with a degree of regularity, clearly it's a problem for the Public Transportation Board. But he suggested also staggered work hours for people working in Georgetown to stop the current rush hour blockages. He also proposed decentralizing government services by moving them to East End. Again, I think this is a legitimate recommendation, also one of the 10 recommendations previously proposed. But again, to teach is to repeat, so best of luck with that. Carter also argued about the rising cost of living. John McLean Jr. put himself out on the limb on the whole traffic solution by suggesting that we should think outside of the box, and said that, and I quote, "I would say we should put maybe a bridge with minimal impact from Rum Point and drop it somewhere nearby the airport, for example, as a means to alleviate traffic in terms of building new roads." This is, again, a proposal that has been lofted in the past, a sort of Key West-style bridge, if you will, that would both be, again, visually appealing, but also perhaps reducing the traffic problem, but certainly not without its environmental risks and potential consequences, but that's what he proposed. Delmira Bodden opted for focusing on lowering the cost of housing, while Isaac Rankin added the environment and education as his top issues. So I think overall it was a good debate, certainly very lively on a number of topics, and I would encourage members of the public, if they haven't yet seen it, to maybe, go back over the weekend and check it out on YouTube. And I think they will also broadcast on the Chamber's Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken. But just put in the words Chamber Candidates Forum. Cayman Islands always helps to add that to your Google search, and certainly you will be directed to it. I would be very anxious to hear at this point in time from residents of East End, specifically those who may have listened or tuned into the debate.
Give us your thoughts.
Give us your thoughts. 745-2626 is the number. We'd love very much to hear from you and what you think of the debates as they were rolled out last night, again, in the district of East End. And I'm just trying to find my schedule, as the English would say, the schedule of these debates, so that I can tell you what's the next one to come up, which should be right here. But
are we moving from the east heading west, or?
Yeah, well, we head from East End, we go north. North side is next. So north side is tonight. And then on Monday, my Hold constituency of Prospect, which should be very interesting to say the least. I'll be tuning into that one.
I know.
To see what they have to say there.
You should get a little hidden mic somewhere in there.
I should. That would be beautiful.
And you just make interjections, you know.
That's right. This is your conscience speaking. I made some wrong choices in the past. For not listening. Listen this time.
Choices.
Yeah, I would.
So either way,
that would be terrific.
Okay, so it's 5:47. I'm going to at least minimum skin over this. So in case you didn't know, Cayman Islands is home to a diverse population, approximately 130 different nationalities.
Are we changing the subject already?
Oh, you wanted to say on that one?
No, I was just asking. We just made a complete.
We're
turning left.
We're changing it, and we don't. Sometimes we don't even signal.
No, sometimes we don't even signal.
I'm one of those. I'm one of those drivers. I'm guilty. I don't signal because sometimes it's obvious.
Sometimes it's obvious.
You saw the brake light.
You saw the brake. You
saw me swerve to the left.
You saw those delineators. Where am I gonna go?
I
have
checking.
to turn left.
Officer, I did it to ensure that she was paying attention to where she was going and what she was doing. I don't want to make it easy for these people. Indicators. It seemed to hear on the talk show. 130 different nationalities is in this country. The top ones are Jamaicans, the Philippines, the United Kingdom, India, Canada, and the United States. Not that the other ones aren't important, but you got the top five.
Yeah.
So we heard here on the BBC, and I thought I would at least just, cursorily run over this whole issue that's come up about the Philippines and Duterte. It was on BBC on our radio station. Sounds like it's relevant. International news that Duterte, who was the president of the Philippines,
oh yes,
which would have been, I think, back in 2016 is when he became president. Yep. Again, I stand to be corrected. Happy to have anyone call in and correct me.
Nope, 2016 to 2022.
Right. Became the president, and during that period of time, amongst other things, he waged a war on drugs.
Yeah.
And in the process, there were a lot of people that were killed, and you had persons, I think, one of them was a lady by the name, I think, Reese or something, saying, "Oh, you're damaging human rights, etc." And this is all wrong.
Well, it was argued that he was, he kept death squads,
right,
going after again drug dealing suspect in his country.
Yeah.
Which sure, they're certainly human beings and they are breaking the law, but this is the war on drugs, and certainly, I think the good old U.S. has even dropped bombs on parts of Colombia and other parts of the world.
I want to come to all that, but the thing is that, and again, not trying to take sides here, but I know that there is a large Filipino community here, and clearly, just a little bit. I mentioned it, the second one, and the bottom line is there's a lot of persons who
go to Kojima.
To Kojima. There's a lot of people that take the view that this is they're not happy with that. I think Duterte has a lot of support, regardless of what you might want to think about the gentleman. I'm sure that there are those who are opposed, but again, just looking at international news, Filipinos around the globe, either praying for or writing about the fact that the ICC arguably he's been handed over to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, by the present government run by Ferdinand Marcos, more commonly known as Bongbong Marcos.
Right.
And they're very upset about this, I think, is the sentiment, I think, coming from a significantly large amount of persons.
Yeah.
Many people feeling that while Duterte was in office, there was a significant decrease in crime and in many different areas, not just in relation to the drugs.
Yeah.
Now, it is important. One of the things I wanted to draw as a local relevance is the fact that it was interesting that the Philippines removed themselves from this ICC charter, if you like, back in 2019. So they wanted to try to do some investigations. Initially, Marcos was disagreeing with it. The government of Ferdinand Marcos was disagreeing with it. But it seems now that there's perhaps some level of animosity in the camps, and somehow they have him handed over. The Philippine government arrested him when he came in the airport, and he's now on his way to Hague, or already there, I'm sure, and there to face trial.
Yeah.
But again, just to ventilate it a little bit, that there are clearly persons who feel very strongly about this issue, I'm sure, on both sides.
Right.
Definitely from the summary sentiments that I've heard, it would definitely seem that most persons feel that Duterte did a good job and that they don't like the fact of what's going on, and that even if he has committed some crimes, that he should be tried in his own country and not necessarily being flown to Hague.
Right.
For those persons who might be interested, well, it's Cayman Islands. Not that we're planning on necessarily doing anything similar, but is the Cayman Islands a member of ICC? The argument or the answer would be no.
Yeah.
But the United Kingdom is. And because of that, they could, how can I put it, relay it. They could put a little, pass it on to us if they want to.
Yeah.
But in essence, we're not necessarily members of the International Criminal Court.
Right.
So either way, I don't know if there's anyone out there with views that wants to call in, but just wanted to make sure that we recognize that it was on the BBC here on our station.
Yes.
And it is an important issue. It's affecting persons within our community. And at the minimum, I think we should be able to discuss it a little bit.
No, absolutely. Well, first of all, on the International Criminal Court, and to your point, and perhaps to the point and support those Filipinos that are in support of Mr. Rodrigo, up until 2019, Mr. How do you pronounce his last name again?
Duterte.
Duterte. I just can't say that word. Duterte insisted that the International Criminal Court had no jurisdiction over the Philippines, and that's why he resisted their previous claims. But somewhere in the, I guess, investigations that followed, something called the Rome Statute in the International Criminal Court Convention maintained that they do, in fact, have jurisdiction over what they call alleged crimes committed before humanity. And, of course, they were referencing the allegations of death squads of bounty hunters that went after drug suspects, largely while he was mayor first and then, of course, elected president. But I think to your point, I can perhaps understand the opposition to this whole notion. Could drug dealers and those breaking the law and not only, selling poisonous drugs to children, young people, but there were lost lives in the endless gang wars that occurred and disruptions to otherwise civilized society. And again, I referred back to the early 70s when the U.S. war on drugs started. I think it was 1971 under Richard Nixon, when he declared that drugs were a national emergency to the United States and declared drugs being the #1 public enemy. And I think shortly thereafter that, the statutes relating to Schedule 1 and 2 drugs, found its way to the laws, and we started criminalizing, drug use and drug possession. So, again, I mean, what are we saying here? Governments should be hamstrung from going after criminality. Again, we can argue perhaps, what were the human life costs of that act of criminality on regular citizens, and therefore is there some justification on it? But certainly, on this side, they're referring to death squads. Again, that's a strong terminology.
Right.
But the U.S. called it the war on drugs, and I think, there's no stronger, terminology than the word war.
Yeah.
War is not pretty. War is ugly, and people die in war. But presumably, they go to war to protect certain freedoms and certainly the interests of otherwise civil society. So, how is the war on drugs led by the U.S. from the 70s, arguably all the way up until the late 90s, any different than a president in a foreign jurisdiction clearly, listening to the majority opinion at the time and saying, listen, this is my war on drugs, and who's there really to judge in that circumstance? I mean, I know it's a very delicate conversation, but I think it's one that is worthy of some consideration.
It's just politics, whether it's local or whether it's somewhere else. It's always going to be one, two sides, maybe even more.
Yeah.
And you're going to have persons like it, don't like it.
We do have a caller. If I can ask you to turn down your radio, we do have a caller on the line on this point. So if you turn down your radio, then you can speak to us.
Radio turned down. Good afternoon, Austin. Good afternoon, Ellio.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
You guys are well.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. It's a beautiful one, too. Beautiful one on the outside, and it was definitely a good day on the inside. Topic is good this afternoon. I know we obviously switched from our fisheries, now we're over to more international news and talking about, Philippines and their leader and so forth. Yeah, it's very interesting. I was listening, going back to the debate first. I caught a little piece of it, didn't really get a chance tonight. Hopefully I get to re-listen to the whole thing because I didn't get to catch anything live and so forth. But I'll be able to re-listen to, hopefully not the edited version too much, but whatever was captured.
Yes, sir.
And then be able to, make a good sense of those representatives that are individuals that are putting themselves forward to be representatives for that Eastern District.
Yeah.
And, obviously I'm from the West side, so the West Bay side, we got plenty of politicians down there, obviously. We'll be getting our turn down there soon and hearing from a lot of our politicians and, want to be representatives, and hopefully none of them steps back either. I was a bit, turned off from the point, especially from one of the West Bay candidates having to, be taken out of the race, especially. I didn't really want to bring up that topic and take us away, but since we're on the topic about how these legality things affect people, whether you did something towards changing the way drugs affect our community, or just simply trying to get yourself into the, the public domain of being an elected representative, where, you get a police record, says you're, clean, you submit it, but then the due diligence and the compliance check happens after, the process rather than before the nomination, for example, where you're told that, yes, we have a clean police record, you can get any job you want here, but, we've dug a bit deeper and obviously this will disqualify you, so we can't let you be nominated,
Right.
And it doesn't have to be in the public domain at that point. At that point, you're still clean of a record, just like the police say you are.
Caller, I hate to interrupt you, but I do have to pause and take a short break.
Yeah,
do you want to hold or do you want to call back?
I'll call right back right after
All
we
right.
finish because we know the
Excellent.
BBC come on. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk in just a few minutes.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
Do you have a healthcare question but not sure who to ask? Contact HSA's Patient Call Center to speak to one of our experienced clinical team members. We are here to answer your questions and help guide you through your healthcare journey. Need to make an appointment? Our team can help. Contact HSA at 949-8600 or email info@hsa.ky. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. President Trump says securing Russia's backing for a ceasefire in Ukraine is proving hard, but he's still confident he'll get it. He said he'd made further calls to Moscow and Kiev and had good news. Pressure on President Putin to accept the deal being offered by Washington was maintained by foreign ministers from the G7 countries. They've threatened further sanctions and endorsed what they called credible security guarantees to protect Ukraine from future aggression. Our State Department correspondent Tom Bateman says the G7 text is very different from a year ago under the Biden administration.
It is notable that the G7 foreign ministers' statement from their meeting of late last year contained paragraph upon paragraph of condemnation of Russia. That was all gone. What there was, though, was a sense of strong backing for Ukraine. This statement talks about support for Ukraine's sovereignty, its territorial integrity and its independence. And so that is a win for the Europeans that they've got that sentiment in the statement, and certainly that's the part of it that they're talking about most.
In Kiev, President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Mr. Putin of seeking to derail diplomacy and prolong the war. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has dismissed suggestions by the Trump administration that the United States could annex his country as crazy. Speaking after being sworn in, Mr. Carney said his priorities would be to protect the interests of Canadian workers and diversify trade relations. On the escalating tariff war with the US, he said that President Trump was a businessman and should remember that Canada was America's biggest client and, as such, expected respect.
We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. And we will look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing.
President Trump has demanded what he called complete accountability for prosecutors who pursued legal cases against him before he returned to office. He made the comments in a campaign-style speech at the Department of Justice, which had previously charged him with illegally storing classified documents at his Florida resort and plotting to overturn his 2020 election defeat. Mr. Trump claimed to have faced wrongs and abuses.
Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice, but I stand before you today to declare that those days are over, and they are never going to come back. They're never coming back. So now, as the chief law enforcement officer in our country, I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred.
This is the World News from the BBC. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, says the United States is expelling the South African ambassador, accusing him of anti-Americanism and of hating President Trump. In a social media post, Mr. Rubio said the ambassador, Ebrahim Rasool, was no longer welcome in the United States. Last month, Mr. Rubio refused to attend a G20 meeting in Johannesburg. The presidents of Venezuela and Russia have announced they're planning to sign a comprehensive agreement that includes further cooperation on energy, transport and agriculture. It comes 2 weeks after the United States suspended a license that allowed the US oil company Chevron to operate in Venezuela. The Italian authorities have ordered dozens of people in parts of northern Italy to leave their homes after heavy rains swelled rivers. Streets in towns in Tuscany near the historic cities of Florence and Pisa were flooded. Elsa Ochny reports.
The regional president said local rescue services were on high alert and advised residents to exercise the utmost caution and keep clear of ground floors and basements. Almost a month's worth of rain fell in Florence on Friday, causing the closure of schools, museums and parks. In Pisa, flood defences were erected along the Arno River, while there have been landslides in Bologna. More heavy rain and thunderstorms are expected to move across northern Italy on Saturday. Scientists have repeatedly warned that man-made climate change increases the risk of natural disasters like floods.
A new study suggests monkeys infected with the deadly Ebola virus can be cured with a new pill, raising hopes for more practical and affordable treatments in humans. Scientists infected 13 rhesus macaques with an extremely high dose of a variant of Ebola. 8 out of 10 monkeys who were given a short course of a daily pill containing the antiviral drug developed protective antibodies. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. And it is just about 6:06 there here in the studio. And, of course, you're tuning in to us on 103.1. Some of you may still be on 89.1, encouraging you to transfer while you can.
Absolutely.
The rope on that one runs out very soon. If you want to join us here in the studio, 745-2626. That's 745-2626. And, of course, you can also WhatsApp us. I think we were waiting to see if someone was going to call back. If not, we're going to go to the WhatsApp recordings that we got.
Well, absolutely. The WhatsApp line is also available. If you want to save those valuable credits, you can dial 928-2562. And from there, you can either leave us an audio voice note or, of course, you can send us a traditional text message. Whilst we're waiting on that caller to call back, we have at least maybe 4 comments coming from WhatsApp. Let's see if we can take 1 or 2 right now.
Good evening, Austin and Ellio. Well, it's good that you're talking a little bit about the debate. I watched the debate, and I should also add that I watched the notifications of technical faults, which were like about half the show. But it was very good that they were able, like we didn't miss anything. That was good. You see, the issue of immigration, as I see it, everybody's talking about it. I think just about every party and every candidate is talking about it. But I think what is important is to be able to get into some details of it, because it's very easy to agree on it, but exactly how to do it. I was very attracted by one candidate in 2017 who said that, well, let's have an immigration system which ensures that you don't give status to more people than the natural birth rate, and then that way you can try to reverse the trend. I think those are the sorts of things really people need to hear. I think that the white paper, in my view, will not achieve anything resembling like that kind of effect, like the effect that Caymanians are looking to do. You see, I like also to go back to Austin. I don't want to make you feel uneasy because you were associated with the PPM, but I'm not quite sure if the PPM would be the right people really to solve this immigration issue, because one of the many suggestions that are being made are that you should have people who can come in and get PR, or rather get a work permit, but not get any kind of permanence. Now, that I think used to exist with TLEPs. The TLEPs, I think the way they worked was you came in, you got a work permit, but you signed a document to say that you will not apply for PR. But then the party which was in power then, which happens to be the PPM, they changed that law. In fact, they had to get the Attorney General to change his legal opinion regarding the effect of those agreements, just so that they could get that done. And I remember that Mr. Ezra Miller actually took the Attorney General to task about why he changed the legal opinion about that. So to me, these things have been tried before. And I don't know if the PPM really, to be fair to them, they did a lot of good things when they were in power, but I'm not quite sure that they are the right party really to solve the immigration issue. Gentlemen, you're doing a very, very great job. Thanks very much for the opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
I see, Austin and Ellio, you've moved on to the issue of Mr. Duterte. Mm-hmm. It will be very interesting there to see how the issue of jurisdiction is decided. And I think you've touched on that, because technically, legally, you assert jurisdiction at the time that you are arresting and prosecuting the person. You don't assert jurisdiction at the time when the person is alleged to have committed the offenses. That would be a very interesting issue relating to retrospective matters. Those matters sometimes can be very, very, very complex. But on a more political note, the International Criminal Court is really meant for small countries who can't resist international pressure, and to that extent, I think it's a very unfair system. I mean, you can't try people as if it is after the Second World War, with the Tokyo trials and the Nuremberg trials. I think as much as possible, people must be tried in the countries in which they committed the offenses. If that is not possible, then they should leave those countries alone. Look at our good big brother and what has happened there. Would anybody ever dare to go to the president there and say that we are taking you to the International Criminal Court? They wouldn't do that, apart from the fact that the United States, of course, is not a member of that court, which tells you again, that court really is for the small countries who can be bullied around. Sorry, that's a major, major political point, but that happens to my view. Thank you.
Thank you too very much.
I'm glad he raised that, because that was one of the things that I wanted to say, is that if you look at the CMICC, I mean, there's persons who are calling for arrest of Putin and Netanyahu, and again, but yeah, maybe you're just picking on the smaller guys, right?
Yeah, quite right. And I think
in fact, he even had similar comments about even presidents of the United States. But either way,
no, absolutely. Again, so it's a war on drugs. It's a universal thing. I think I like the wider point he made that, in some cases, some of these bodies need to stay out of internal politics. And certainly to his point, if it's good for one group of people or one nation, then how is it, of course, a bad thing for a smaller nation? 745-2626 is the number. We got a caller on the line. Let's go take that phone call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes. Can I join Straight Talk, please?
You're on the air.
Okay.
Can you turn down your radio, though, or whatever you're listening to in the background?
Okay. Yes, sure.
No problem. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, you're on the air.
Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening. I just got into, your topic this evening about Duterte. Obviously, I'm a Filipino.
Yes, you're the one we were eager to hear from. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Well, obviously, a lot of Filipinos are pro-Duterte. And
why?
Why? Because of a lot of reasons. First and foremost, he was one of the, I should say, the only president who put the nations into peace, Us being Filipinos working abroad, we're at peace that our family back home are safe.
Okay.
He put away drugs. He put away all scalawags in the government. So we are at peace that, our country is, our family is safe and everybody is safe home. He gave salary raise to policemen, to teachers, to government officials and government employees, so that there would be lesser corruption.
Okay.
And just to clarify with the death squad that they are saying, it was just being painted on a different color by other politicians or his opponents, because his instruction to military and policemen is, when you're going to catch a drug syndicate or a drug lord or people that engage in drugs, once they retaliate to you, of course, your first defense is to protect yourself. So that's what usually happens. These people die because they try to fight against the policemen, the military, or the Philippine drug, the PDAE that, handles drugs in the Philippines. So, but they didn't even, ICC didn't even see how many victims of murders, of rapes, because done by all these addicts. People are not safe going out in the evening or even during the day because they are kidnapped, they are raped, they are killed. Imagine a son killing his own parent because he is high in drugs.
Yeah.
That is very it's unbelievable.
It's heartbreaking.
And yes, not only heartbreaking, but imagine also if you're a parent working abroad and you have a son or a daughter, you're sending money home, and then this money goes to drugs. It's heartbreaking. It breaks the family, it breaks the community, and it breaks the whole nation.
Yeah.
So what he did is just, of course, you have to go to the root of the problem. He closed down all these laboratories where these drugs are being made. He hunt down all these drug lords and those even those imagine it even went to the point of there are ships where they have their laboratories, so it won't be tracked by the police. But still, they were able to locate them. The fight, we believe, a lot of us believe that these politicians that are fighting against him are being financed by these drug lords. Of course, it's a good business. But look at what is happening to the other parts of the world. A lot of people who are, taking all these drugs, they just drop down dead. And we cannot let that happen to our family, to our relatives, or to even to the people in our community. It's better to go out at night, safe, and you can really see how this president lived a very simple life. He goes home to his very simple home, and imagine right now that he is at Hague. There are people protecting his home because they are scared that people might plant, or this opposition will plant something into his home, and put drugs there or whatever to make him look that he's guilty.
Right.
That's why there are a lot of ordinary poor people that surrounds his house and whatever property that he has, just to protect this old man.
Yes.
And I don't think you can fool a few people, but you cannot fool 65 million Filipinos who put even Marcos where he is right now. If not but because of his running mate, the daughter of Duterte, Bongbong Marcos will not win. But that 65 million, even the daughter of Duterte has a higher vote as a vice president than the president himself. So imagine the support of the people. Before, when we had the People Power Revolution during the 1980s, when his father, the father of Bongbong Marcos, was exiled, it only happens mainly in Manila. The people power happened in Manila. But now, it's not only the whole Philippines, but the whole world, because there's a lot of Filipino around the world. And Duterte is loved by all the Filipinos who work abroad because he has done a lot of help to all the Filipino workers abroad. Imagine just the processing of our documents. He make it easy. He cut all those red tapes along the way before we can leave the country. He has to cut everything. And even the processing of ordinary documents, you don't have to go back and forth. He wants, when you go there, you have to be attended, and he even have a direct line that you can contact him if you are not satisfied with the performance of even a simple government office in the Philippines. Wherever you are, you can call this number.
Yes.
Imagine that. And a lot of people know that in the evening, he drives a taxi and goes around the place just to check that everybody is safe, especially when he was still a mayor. Or sometimes he drives his motorbike when he was, a bit younger.
Sure. Good representation.
He go around the place just to check. He even goes straight to, to those victims. And you can see his empathy to those people that are victims, to those people who are... that's why he is so mad when he sees, like, a daughter has been raped because of drugs. He hates that because he thinks of it, it's like his own daughter. You can even see him crying. And this is the highest position. He got the highest position in the country, but he eats on a small eatery around, around Metro Manila or around the country. He doesn't want to be treated like, like you're a red carpet. No, he doesn't like that.
Gotcha.
And he said that's why he has so much support not from the oligarchs or not from the rich Filipinos, but from the, ordinary, simple Filipinos.
The grassroots. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so very much,
definitely.
for calling in and sharing your viewpoint with us. Certainly, you hear it first, providing a bit of local flavor, and certainly one of the millions, to your point, Ellio, of Filipinos who still show a lot of support.
I was watching all the riots.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm going to touch on that today.
You know, and to the caller's point, the news media is suggesting, agreeing with her comments that this could very well have been politically motivated. The current president, Fernando Marcos Jr., was said to be instrumental in handing over Duterte. They are political rivals, and certainly according to the BBC.
Well, initially they were friends, apparently. And,
that's usually what it is. Politics makes.
And now you're getting rid of the other guy,
fellows, as they say. But according to the BBC, minutes after Duterte left the Filipino airspace, President Marcos gave a televised address saying that the country was fulfilling its legal obligations. It is 22 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We do need to pause, take a very short commercial break. We have at least one more WhatsApp audio note to share. Hopefully we'll have time for that. If not both comments, then certainly at least one. But don't go anywhere. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Bobo FM.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM and simulcast live on YouTube and Instagram. The phone lines remain open, 745-2626, or the WhatsApp line at 928-2562. We have about 5 minutes remaining, and we have two WhatsApp audio notes. I think we may only have time for one of them. Let's see if we can take the first one.
Austin and Ellio, I'm enjoying the subject today. You're talking about fishing and the price of fish and what have you there on the island.
I think we listened to that one already.
Yes, we heard that one already. Sorry, my bad. Let's hit this one.
Well, Ellio and Austin, congratulations on those new candidates that are declared that are running for office that you mentioned there. In regard to the traffic situation, I think that what our people have been doing is making plans to bring people in on work permit. They're more interested in making money, multi-millions of dollars off a work permits, you know, to line the government coffers with money, millions of dollars, and it's not getting to the people, but at least they're making money. And that's not the most important thing. We have to think about the infrastructure, how that needs to be guarded and executed so that our people can be happy, comfortable, and safe. Everyone coming to the island should be safe. No one should be abused, okay? If we're going to bring people into the island, okay, and we're going to say, well, that people that are on work permits shouldn't be allowed to fish, I think that is absolutely wrong. Okay, because you cannot bring people into the island and mistreat them. You're going to have lawsuits on your case, you know, coming up later on if that's not executed properly. If we bring people in on work permit, then they should have the same human rights, not political rights, but human rights as anyone else, and that's fair.
Well, certainly, we want to thank that listener for those comments.
I want to really thank everyone for participating. Yes. I mean, it really just allows us to be able to have that much more to talk about, to dissect, analyze, etc. It's really good. I got some comments, one on the Filipino issue, and as well I got one on the issue about dishonesty.
Right, we'll share them. We got about 3 minutes left.
So the Philippines is not a member of the ICC, so it's a little odd that he was taken out on a private charter plane to ICC. And for what it's worth, this is actually coming from a Caymanian.
Okay.
Usually a person wanted by the ICC is arrested when they enter a ICC member state. So Duterte's daughter and others have merit to say he was abducted and taken out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
The same Kimanian talks about dishonesty issue. I believe the drafters of the Constitution reflected an unfortunate mindset. The mentality that a leopard never loses its spot. Like, why would a crime of dishonesty, even if 40 years old, disqualify someone from public office? Even if the entire country wanted them, is that not implicitly saying a person can never change? Is that not saying that the will of the people can be defeated? Very interesting comment.
Certainly is.
Worthy of discussion, I think.
Worthy of discussion.
We'll pick it up first thing on Monday.
We certainly will. With about 2 minutes remaining, maybe it's a good opportunity to share with the listening audience a little bit of what we have planned forward-looking for next week. Well, I'll start. Hopefully next week we will have an opportunity to feature at least one, maybe two of the candidates in the 2025 general election. We continue to suggest that our listeners watch this space. We also will be hoping to have a discussion on the whole legal changes to beneficial ownership.
Correct.
A really
big hitter, they call him?
Yeah,
Big
a big
fish.
hitter, a big fish, a heavy hitter, a premium guest in studio, certainly somebody who's very familiar with the topic and familiar with the fight against the UK-imposed public beneficial registries. I think that will be a very enlightening discussion next week. And also possibly still trying to make it happen, a continued discussion in our series on the immigration white paper. We may have a guest come in and help us continue that conversation on one of the other issues as well. But 45 seconds remaining in the show. Ellio, some closing comments?
I just want to say it was a good discussion, and I didn't get onto the issue about the executive, but I'm sure we'll have time next week. And again, I want to thank the person who sent in the text about the dishonesty issue. Definitely a different way of looking at it.
Yes.
A very unique way of looking at it.
Yes.
And I think that is worthy of discussion as well. I just want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend. Be safe. And of course, don't forget you're our friends. And we look forward to seeing you on Monday. So stay safe.
That's right. Stay safe, Kim-Ann, on the roadways. If you're still in traffic, well, that's all the time we have for today. But be sure to tune in to Straight Talk every weekday evening from 4:30 to 6:30 right here on 103.1 FM.
The BBC on Bobo. This is the BBC World Service. Across Cayman on Bobo FM.